You think you need more income, but what you really need is a new identity. All your budgeting apps, spreadsheets, and willpower won't work if you're still the same person who thinks they re bad with money. True financial transformation starts by becoming someone who naturally makes smart money decisions. Financial struggles are rarely caused by a lack of knowledge or insufficient income alone. Most people who find themselves perpetually stuck in cycles of debt or poor money management are not failing because they haven't read enough books or studied enough investment strategies. The root cause is much deeper and more fundamental. It is an identity problem. Identity defines behavior, and behavior determines financial outcomes. If someone sees themselves as a person who is bad with money, their actions will inevitably align with that self-perception, regardless of their intentions or temporary bursts of motivation. The mind works in a way that seeks consistency between who we believe we are and what we do. When there is a mismatch between identity and desired behavior, cognitive dissonance occurs, and the brain will unconsciously find ways to restore alignment. For instance, if a person considers themselves financially irresponsible but tries to save money, their mind will generate excuses or rationalizations to justify why it is acceptable to spend instead. This internal conflict often explains why people fail at budgeting, even when they are highly motivated. No amount of tracking, planning, or discipline will consistently overcome an identity that is misaligned with financial success. People can temporarily override their identity through sheer willpower. But willpower is like a muscle. It can fatigue, and eventually, old patterns reassert themselves. This is why many people see initial improvements in saving or controlling expenses, only to regress back to previous habits once the mental effort becomes unsustainable. Real change occurs not by forcing behavior to match a desired outcome, but by gradually transforming the underlying self-concept. An identity aligned with financial responsibility naturally produces behaviors consistent with wealth building. This identity shift rewires the mind in a subtle but profound way. Small actions, repeated consistently, reinforce the new self-image. Each successful act of saving, investing, or avoiding unnecessary spending is evidence that confirms the new identity to the brain. Over time, the cumulative effect of these actions reshapes not only habits but also the internal narrative a person tells themselves about money. This explains why people with similar incomes and financial literacy can have drastically different results. Two individuals may understand how compound interest works or know the difference between good and bad debt, but one will accumulate wealth while the other struggles. The difference lies in how each person sees themselves. One sees themselves as someone who makes smart decisions and avoids unnecessary risks, while the other sees themselves as someone who is prone to poor judgment and impulse. These internalized beliefs act as a thermostat for behavior. When a person's identity and goals are aligned, actions flow naturally, requiring minimal effort. When they are misaligned, actions require constant struggle, and failure becomes inevitable. The importance of identity extends beyond personal money habits. It shapes responses to financial challenges, risk-taking, and long-term planning. Individuals with a strong financial identity approach opportunities with confidence, make strategic decisions, and maintain consistency even during setbacks. They are less susceptible to external pressures, trends, or the temptation of quick fixes. This foundational principle explains why conventional advice often falls short. Budgets, spreadsheets, and investment calculators address symptoms, but not the underlying cause. They provide structure, but structure alone cannot change the trajectory of someone whose identity is at odds with financial responsibility. True transformation comes from addressing the core question: who do you believe you are when it comes to money? By shifting this self-perception and reinforcing it through repeated actions, people can naturally adopt behaviors that lead to lasting financial stability and growth. This approach ensures that progress is sustainable, not temporary, and allows individuals to navigate challenges, setbacks, and social pressures with resilience. Understanding that financial struggle is an identity problem reframes the entire journey of wealth building. It emphasizes the importance of becoming the type of person whose habits naturally align with financial success. creating a foundation that supports consistent growth and empowers long-term prosperity. Building a new financial identity begins with small, deliberate actions that reinforce the belief that you are someone who manages money effectively. It is not about sudden, dramatic transformations, but about consistent behaviors that accumulate over time and prove to the brain that the new identity is real. The first step in this process is to take actions that are manageable, achievable, and repeatable, because the brain needs evidence to accept a new self-concept. For example, starting with very small amounts of saving or investing allows the mind to experience success without triggering resistance. Saving even $5 or investing $10 may seem insignificant in the short term, but these actions serve a much larger purpose. They are proof that you are capable of acting in alignment with your desired identity. Each small act reinforces the notion that you are a saver, an investor, or a person who makes smart financial choices. Over time, these incremental steps compound psychologically. Much like how compound interest works in finance, the brain begins to recognize patterns, connecting the act of saving with the internal narrative of being someone who is responsible with money. This shift is essential because identity operates at a subconscious level. While conscious effort and willpower can temporarily influence behavior, it is the underlying identity that determines consistency over the long term. The repeated actions act as training, teaching the brain that the new identity is the default state. This process also changes the way one perceives opportunities and risks. Someone who has developed a financial identity of a responsible saver approaches spending and investing with discernment. Instead of reacting impulsively to the latest trends or advice, they make decisions based on alignment with their established self-concept. The old patterns of overspending, chasing short-term gratification, or avoiding strategic decisions gradually fade because they no longer fit the new narrative of who they are. As the new identity strengthens, behaviors become automatic, requiring less conscious thought and effort. The repetitive reinforcement of small financial decisions eventually results in habits that feel natural, as opposed to forced. The brain begins to operate in a state of expectation that aligns with the new identity. So actions consistent with financial discipline are no longer seen as unusual or difficult. This is why consistency is more important than the size of the initial financial contributions. A person saving $50 every month develops the habit and the identity of a saver, whereas saving $600 once may provide temporary benefit but does not produce the same internal reinforcement. The psychological process is more significant than the numeric outcome because it shapes the foundation of behavior that will support long-term financial growth. Once the identity is established, it enables more ambitious goals to be pursued with confidence. For example, reaching the first significant milestone, such as saving the first $10,000, is transformative because it provides proof that the person is capable of creating and sustaining wealth. This milestone reinforces self-efficacy, which is the belief in one's ability to achieve desired outcomes. Beyond the financial aspect, building this identity changes one's relationship with risk and opportunity. It cultivates the ability to act decisively, make calculated decisions, and resist social pressure to revert to old patterns. The person develops internal standards that guide financial choices, reducing the need for constant external monitoring or reliance on sheer willpower. Furthermore, the development of a financial identity alters the way the individual interacts with others and with life itself. It provides confidence to negotiate, to invest in opportunities, and to make choices without fear of scarcity. The establishment of this identity creates a psychological framework that supports growth, resilience, and consistency, which are far more critical than any single financial decision or strategy. Over time, this transformation allows the person to act in alignment with long-term goals, navigate challenges effectively, and build wealth sustainably because their identity now drives behavior, not temporary motivation or external pressure. The process of building wealth through consistent financial habits goes far beyond simple accumulation of money. It is deeply rooted in the development of mental resilience, discipline, and the establishment of long-term behavioral patterns that align with a financially responsible identity. Once an individual begins to act in accordance with a new financial identity, every decision made reinforces that identity, creating a feedback loop where confidence, clarity, and competence grow simultaneously. Early successes, even small ones, play an outsized role in this transformation because they provide tangible evidence that change is possible and sustainable. Each deliberate action, whether it is saving a small amount, avoiding unnecessary expenses, or making a thoughtful investment, communicates to the brain that the person is capable of responsible financial behavior. This psychological reinforcement is essential because it solidifies the new identity at a subconscious level, making it increasingly automatic to behave in alignment with long-term goals. Over time, what initially requires effort and conscious thought becomes habitual and instinctive. Much like other deeply ingrained behaviors such as brushing one's teeth or maintaining a daily routine. This shift allows an individual to operate from a place of confidence and control, rather than reactionary decision-making or emotional impulses. As habits solidify, the brain begins to interpret every financial choice through the lens of the established identity. Decisions are no longer driven solely by short-term desires, external pressures, or social expectations, but by a clear internal framework that prioritizes strategic outcomes. The consistent reinforcement of these habits reduces cognitive dissonance, as the mind no longer experiences the tension that arises from acting out of alignment with one's self-concept. In this way, the development of a financial identity protects against impulsive behavior, panic reactions during market volatility, and social pressure to overspend. Furthermore, the accumulation of wealth is no longer merely a goal in itself. It becomes a natural byproduct of behavior consistent with the identity. The first significant milestone, such as saving a defined amount of money, has profound implications beyond the numerical achievement. It changes the way the individual perceives opportunity, risk, and personal capability. This early achievement reinforces the belief that financial success is attainable and sustainable, creating a psychological safety net that allows for bolder, more strategic decisions in the future. With this foundation in place, the individual develops a clearer understanding of risk management and long-term planning, distinguishing between calculated investments and impulsive, short-sighted choices. Financial decisions become less about fear or scarcity and more about strategy and foresight. As the identity strengthens, the person experiences a reduction in stress and anxiety related to money. The security provided by early savings and a consistent approach to finances alleviates the constant pressure to react to crises, enabling more thoughtful and proactive decision-making. This change in psychological state impacts other areas of life, including career, relationships, and personal development, because the individual is no longer operating from a place of financial desperation. Instead, they can focus on growth, opportunity, and deliberate action. Moreover, the consistent practice of aligning actions with identity fosters resilience against setbacks. Mistakes or temporary losses are viewed as opportunities to learn rather than failures, because the underlying identity of a responsible financial actor remains intact. This resilience ensures continuity of progress even in the face of challenges. Over time, the accumulation of these habits and behaviors establishes a sustainable framework for long-term wealth creation. The individual is no longer dependent on luck, timing, or extraordinary circumstances, but on the structured reinforcement of an identity that naturally produces prudent financial decisions. This transformation, though gradual, is permanent and self-reinforcing, creating a foundation upon which continued growth and stability can be built for decades. The journey of accumulating one's first significant financial cushion is not just a matter of dollars and cents. It represents a profound psychological and behavioral transformation that reshapes the way a person interacts with money, risk, and opportunity. This initial financial milestone functions as a catalyst for building long-term confidence, clarity, and strategic thinking. When an individual begins to save consistently, even in modest amounts, They are proving to themselves that they are capable of deliberate financial action. Each dollar set aside serves as evidence of the ability to act in alignment with a disciplined identity. This process of incremental achievement is crucial because the human brain is wired to respond to proof. Once there is tangible evidence that one can save and invest wisely, the mind begins to integrate this behavior into the person's self-concept. This integration creates a foundation for more complex financial behaviors in the future. As the person no longer relies on sheer willpower or external motivation to act responsibly. Instead, their actions become natural extensions of who they are. Early savings milestones, such as accumulating the first $10,000, trigger a psychological shift. The sense of security that comes with having a financial buffer reduces stress and anxiety, allowing for clearer thinking and more rational decision-making. This newfound calm enables individuals to assess opportunities and risks without the cloud of immediate financial pressure. Instead of making choices based on scarcity or fear, they begin to approach financial decisions with strategic intent. The impact of this early accumulation extends beyond the individual's finances. It affects behavior in other areas of life, including career decisions, entrepreneurial pursuits, and personal relationships. With a secure base, the individual is able to negotiate from a position of strength, take calculated risks, and pursue opportunities they may have previously avoided out of necessity. This autonomy and freedom reinforce the sense of control that comes from having a well-established financial cushion. Furthermore, the process of building the first substantial sum fosters the development of critical habits and mental frameworks necessary for ongoing wealth creation. Regular saving and thoughtful investing cultivate patience, delayed gratification, and an appreciation for compounding over time. These habits create a self-reinforcing cycle. Consistent action builds confidence, which leads to better decision-making, which in turn produces greater financial results, further strengthening the underlying identity. The lessons learned during this phase also include the recognition of social dynamics and the impact of peer pressure. When a person begins to prioritize long-term financial security, they may encounter resistance or skepticism from friends or family who do not share the same values. This experience teaches the importance of establishing boundaries, making independent choices, and maintaining focus on personal goals. Over time, these experiences consolidate resilience, reinforcing the psychological infrastructure necessary to sustain wealth-building efforts for decades. In addition, the early accumulation of wealth allows for a shift in perspective regarding money, moving from a mindset of scarcity to one of abundance. Having a safety net enables proactive behavior, such as pursuing entrepreneurial ventures, negotiating better compensation, or investing strategically, rather than reacting defensively to financial stress. The first significant savings milestone also acts as a proof of concept for one's capacity to generate and manage money. Unlike inherited wealth or sudden windfalls, which can be fleeting, this achievement represents a skill set, discipline, and identity that can be leveraged repeatedly. The experience demonstrates that wealth is not simply a product of luck, timing, or circumstance, but the result of consistent action and intentional behavior. Ultimately, building that initial financial foundation is transformative because it does more than change a bank balance. It reshapes identity, reinforces discipline, reduces fear, cultivates strategic thinking, and establishes the mental frameworks necessary for long-term financial growth and resilience. This stage lays the groundwork for a lifetime of intelligent decision-making and sustainable wealth accumulation. The process of building wealth is fundamentally tied to the development of habits and behaviors that align with a person's identity, rather than simply the accumulation of money. While many people focus on strategies, financial products, or investment techniques, the deeper driver of lasting financial success is the transformation of one's self-concept and daily actions. This begins with the recognition that knowledge alone does not produce wealth. Understanding how compound interest works, knowing the difference between good debt and bad debt, or reading extensively about personal finance can create the illusion of progress, yet without corresponding behavior. That knowledge remains theoretical, Real financial transformation occurs when an individual internalizes the identity of someone who is disciplined, strategic, and responsible with money. This identity shapes decisions automatically, even in moments where temptation or social pressure could otherwise derail them. The creation of this identity is a gradual process, anchored in consistent, small actions that provide repeated evidence to the brain of a new way of being. Each decision to save, invest, or spend thoughtfully acts as a reinforcement of this identity, gradually replacing the old patterns of impulsivity, overconsumption, and short-term thinking. Over time, these actions shift from conscious effort to automatic behavior, creating a psychological infrastructure that supports wealth creation for the long term. This transformation is not limited to financial actions. It also reshapes the individual's mindset and approach to risk, opportunity, and decision-making. Once a person identifies as someone who manages money well, they naturally make more rational, forward-thinking choices. They are able to distinguish between intelligent risk-taking and impulsive decisions, approach investment opportunities with patience and analysis, and avoid distractions or trends that do not align with their long-term goals. This identity also changes the way individuals perceive setbacks and challenges. Instead of seeing financial difficulties as personal failings, they are viewed as temporary obstacles that can be navigated with discipline and strategic thinking. The first significant accumulation of savings acts as both a proof of capability and a psychological safety net. Having even a modest financial cushion reduces stress and frees cognitive bandwidth, allowing individuals to think beyond immediate survival and engage with long-term planning. This financial security also enhances confidence, which extends to other areas of life, including career decisions, entrepreneurial endeavors, and personal relationships. By demonstrating the ability to save and manage money effectively, individuals gain the confidence to pursue opportunities they might have previously avoided due to fear or scarcity. This creates a positive feedback loop, where financial discipline reinforces confidence, which enables better opportunities and decisions, further strengthening financial stability. Another crucial aspect of this transformation is the cultivation of patience and delayed gratification. Building wealth is inherently a long-term endeavor, and the consistent practice of saving, investing, and making deliberate choices reinforces the value of thinking in decades rather than weeks or months. This perspective encourages sustainable behaviors that compound over time, creating exponential benefits that go far beyond the initial financial milestone. The development of a disciplined identity also empowers individuals to set boundaries and navigate social pressures effectively. When people begin to prioritize long-term financial security, they may encounter skepticism or criticism from peers who are less disciplined. Learning to maintain focus on personal goals, establish boundaries, and make independent decisions becomes an essential skill in preserving progress and reinforcing the new identity. Ultimately, the foundation of wealth is not built on luck, inheritance, or fleeting opportunities, but on a transformed identity that drives consistent, intelligent financial behavior. The habits, mindset, and psychological frameworks developed through this process enable sustainable growth, resilience in the face of challenges, and the ability to generate and preserve wealth over a lifetime. The emphasis on identity and behavior ensures that financial success is repeatable, self-reinforcing, and deeply ingrained, providing the individual with the capability to manage not just their money, but their entire approach to opportunity, risk, and life decisions.